Hey guys, iKailaKai here, and this is going to be another video on RP Luffy. I realized that maybe a lot of people didn't see my original one because it came out before my tier lists came out. As such, maybe people didn't really look back on the videos that I already posted and were asking for a Red Purple Luffy video. The first video is against Doflamingo. I recommend watching that, by the way, because this is going to be, of course, a different matchup. Doflamingo is a much harder matchup, but I want to explain why I think this deck is tier 1. And namely, that's because Shanks, which is extremely popular right now, has an extremely hard time against Luffy. So this is going to be a video going over both sides of the matchup. One interesting thing, by the way, if you are an OP09 right now in Southeast Asia, for example, or even Japan, 一応日本人なんですけど、ありがとうございます。見てくれて。でも、most of my viewers are English, so I'll be speaking in English, of course. I think that Shanks is very good because he's very simple to play for example, beginners. The issue, of course, is that the SR Shanks is quite expensive at the moment. And then likewise, Red Purple Luffy is also not too hard to play. You just need to sort of understand the systems and timings that you need to ramp and not ramp. And of course, it runs the 9-cost Luffy. And of course, the 9-cost Luffy is very expensive right now. So unfortunately, these are two quite expensive decks. Let's get into the video. Let's start with the Red Purple Luffy going first, just because his moves are a bit easier to see going first. Now, unfortunately for Red Purple Luffy, this Mulligan, we have 4 and 7, which if we were going second is great. We just want one thing to increase our tone, and then we need something to put on 7, so if we were going second, this is amazing, but because we're going first, actually, this isn't really great, because what we're actually looking for is something like 1, then a ramp on 3 or 5, and then 9 costs, so we end up skipping over 7. So I'll Mulligan this. And as Shanks 22nd, we have Lucky Root, as well as Yasop, and even Shanks. So I think this is pretty solid for Shanks as well. So let's keep this as Shanks and then play this out. I got a pretty hand as Luffy in the end, so this will be a battle of which side's strongest move is stronger. Wait, onegaishimasu. One ball, enter. Enter. 9,000 liter. Take. Okay. Enter. So the annoying thing is because Luffy's 6,000, we just can't hit. So unfortunately, we just have to play MacLeod and then enter. If we got that last turn, that would have been good. I have the choice right now to either play Bonkure or Okanban Daisaigai. Sorry, I don't know the English name. So it just depends on if I think that I need the card draw or if I think I need the attack power. I don't think I'm in need of the card draw because we actually already have our 2 9 costs already. Although unfortunately this card doesn't have counter and I would like to get out of my hand. We don't necessarily need the draw, so having this extra 6,000 potentially attack, assuming that he plays Yasop the next turn, would be good to have. I just don't want it to die on this turn, so I'm going to hit first with 5 liter before playing it. 7,000 liter. Leader effect minus 1,000 and then 2,000 counter. I think Shanks really needs to defend all of these early attacks that are easy to defend because he will just get run over from my testing. Bonkure, and then on play effect, get 1 active don't. Cancel. And then on play plus 1,000 to my leader. The one issue with this is that I don't want it to get stuck in my hand because I can see myself playing Rayleigh and Shanks this next turn, which is why I only run 1. I could even reduce it down to 0, but I'm still trying to give it a chance. But in these sorts of situations, I see why I don't really want to have 1. I can definitely see it getting stuck in my hand though, so I will use it now, just so that we have more options later. And I think in almost every case, we're going to be playing Rayleigh next turn, not Beckman, so I'll pick up the 2,000 counter. Then 6,000 later. As Luffy, I generally take the first life. 6,000 is a bit tempting to defend, but the attacks don't necessarily get that huge until much later in the game, so I'm fine to take this just to have more resources. Take, and then enter. We are at 8 dong, so leader effect, get 1 dong active. I'll copy Yasop and then 6,000 liter. So at minimum another 6,000 attack is coming, and it could be Newgate, for example, on 8,000, and that's harder to defend, so I will defend this one while I can. I don't have any 1,000 counters, so just 2,000. In this situation, making pressure is much more important than making it so that I can't be killed, because there's nothing that the opponent's actually going to hit me with next turn, regardless that I'm actually scared of. So in this case, I will be playing Luffy. Then Luffy on play, minus 1 dong, and then draw 1 card. Now he has Rush. I should hit with this first, sorry. 6,000 liter. 6,000 liter, also plus 2,000. And then 10,000 liter. The one thing that we can do is, because we're going to play Rayleigh next turn anyways, we can KO Bunkley, so there's no urgent need for me to KO with Lucky Root. The issue though is that Lucky Ro's effect then can only be used for after he plays Queen, which could potentially be 3 turns from now, which is a long time while this is going to be hitting at 10,000 every turn, so I'll just block this for now. And then KO. On KO effect, KO Bongore. And then enter. Unfortunately, we can't take a defeat, of course. We can take it next turn, but the power of this deck is that this comes out 1 turn earlier than actually play these things. It's great that we drew these, though, because this is how we're going to be able to fight this matchup the next couple of turns. So 6,000 leader. 6k leader, I'll do 1k. Let's play Rayleigh, and then I'll minus 3,000 defeat, and it stays until the next turn. So defeat is 7,000 power. Draw. The one important thing, of course, is that we want to be able to play 2 9 costs before they can start to play their 10 cost Shanks. So definitely let's play this one. Plus 2,000 leader, and then I will go 8,000 into Yasel. Yep. Take. I don't have any Gum Giant, unfortunately, so I'll just leave the Dong on here, and then 8,000 leader. 8,000 leader take, and then enter. I don't want to hit with this right now because you can defend it with 1,000, and that feels like a waste. I'd rather wait until the Newgate effect runs out. So I'm going to leave that standing, nor can I attack with this. So all we can do is Shanks, and then let's KO Newgate. Wait, and then enter. Okay, so actually in most cases, you do end up having another 9 costs here. So the choice here, because we don't have that, is to either play 7 Kid and then hit the leader really hard to finish the game soon. But in the event that he can start to take back my board, then it gets a bit harder because I can only potentially put him down to 1 life, and if I don't have a rusher after that, it's a bit of a problem. So what I think I'm going to do instead is lock down the board a bit with Queen, and then hopefully pick up more top end to play next turn. 5 dull, Queen, and then on play effect, -1 dull, then draw 2 and trash 1. I want to do this first so I can sort of see my options. Nani's kind of interesting. Play this first just so that I can see my options and I can decide if I want to actually put my dull on here or if I want to put out more blockers. Oh. Nika. Okay, so now for sure, I think I just want to lock down the board right now and then start to push next turn. 6,000 leader. 6,000 leader, I'll leader effect -1,000 and then 1,000 counter. 10,000 leader. Okay. Then let's leader effect, get 1 dull active, and then we have 5 dull, so 5 dull, Queen. Queen's on play effect, -1 dull, and then draw 2, trash 1. Draw 2, and then we don't need this, trash 1. Enter. 8,000 leader, so 9,000 counter. 12,000 leader, take, 10 dull, Shanks, and then KO defeat. And then enter. So I think it's better for me to just try to lock down the board 1 more turn, as I'm pretty sure I'm going to survive. There is a chance that this is Gum Giant, so... But there is also the leader effect that I need to think about. I think I have enough counter in hand to be able to defend everything with all the blockers, so I'll just hit with 9,000 leader. So leader effect, -1,000, so it's 8,000. And then kick course, trash 1 card, 8,000, and then 9,000 counter. Enter. In this spot, I think Rayleigh's actually better to play, just because even if I play Shanks, it's just going to be absorbed by 1 blocker, and this takes 1 blocker anyways, and gives me 2 extra dome to be able to hit with. So let's go with this, I guess. -3,000 Queen, -2,000 Newgate, and then KO Queen. Okay. 10,000 leader, 2k 1k, 12,000 leader, take. Okay. 12,000 leader, block, enter. Newgate's 8,000 right now from Rayleigh, but we are in a spot as Shanks had the perfect curve that we do need to go for lethal now. So we have to hope for the best. 8,000 leader. Take. Okay. 10 dull. Nika. And then Nika effect, -10 dull. And then bottom deck these 2. Leader effect, get 1 dull active. Nika effect, rest 1 dull to get 1 dull active. And then I'll put 1 dull on leader and 7,000 leader. Leader effect, -1,000 defeat, and then 2,000 counter. Enter, and I guess my second turn. Drop. First, let's do Nika effect. And I don't survive next turn, of course, but because he only has 2 cards, and even with leader effect, 10,000 will go through. 10,000 leader. Take. 12,000 leader. Yep. So this is the Luffy list that I used in this video. The Shanks one's the same as the last video against Bonnie, so I'm overlaying it here. So if you want to see the explanation on that list, go check out that video. But for this video, let's talk about Luffy. This list hasn't changed too much from my first video explaining this list. However, there are a couple of differences. Now this deck tends to have 4 types of cards. It has Searchers in Nami, and for now I'm trying the 1-cost event. I like the 1-cost event more than the 1-cost law from this set, because 1-cost law can only search 2 or higher, and although it has counter, this one has trigger, and there are lots of cards that you can cycle with, whether it's Queen, Nami, or Gum Gum Giant. So having this extra search that can search 5, and also can pick up Giant, I think is very strong, but of course I'll keep testing this, and maybe it won't end up in the final list. You have your ramp. Zorojuro is of course searchable. Bonkure is just very strong, and then Okanban Daisaigai is another ramp card that helps you draw a card, which is very good for this deck. And because you ramp, you skip the mid game and you go straight into late game. You have 7-cost Kid, which is very good into things like Doflamingo, as well as when you're going second in general. Just paying a 7-cost 8,000 on what should be your 6th on turn that also makes your leader 7,000 is extremely powerful. Whitebeard has always been strong, and then 9 Luffy, although I see people talking about 10-cost Shanks versus 9-cost Luffy, the general curve that you have with this deck is if you're going first, you go 1, 3, you play Zorojuro, or you wait, you play Bonkure the next turn, and then you'll ramp. Then the next turn after that, you'll be at 8 dong. You're at 8 dong, so you can use your leader effect to go straight to 9 dong. So if you're going first, you can play these 9 costs on what should be your 7 dong turn, instead of having to wait another turn for playing Shanks. If you're going second, it's actually the same, because you'll be going 2, and then on 4, you'll be playing Zorojuro or Bonkure or Okanban Daisaigai. Then next turn, you'll be at 7. At 7, you're going to play Kid, and Kid minuses 1 dong, which means next turn you'll be at 8, and then 8 becomes, with your leader ability, 9, and then you can play these again. As such, I don't like to run Shanks because it makes the deck feel a bit more clunky, as well as, importantly, if we don't have 7-cost Kid on the board, we can't leave up 1 dong for Gum Gum Giant. Now, if you do run Shanks, it's very high rolly, and I imagine it's very good for the mirror, but for now, this is a very strong template, and things like 9-cost Luffy, although they may not feel amazing because, like, it's just 1 draw and rush, for this deck it's very strong, as your 6,000 base gives you some sort of defense, as well as the extra draw for this deck is quite significant. Most importantly, it is searchable off of these things, which increases the consistency of the deck, which is what I see people bring up most as the argument against it. Lastly, you have 1 Nika, because generally you can finish out the game with these. If you're in a situation where the opponent was able to clear everything that you played, essentially from the turn that you played it, it starts to get a little bit hard, so this sort of thing helps for insurance. The game against Shanks actually would not have been hard if I could just draw like 1 or 2 Giants, but because I didn't have these, I had to play with the sort of standard resources I had, which means that I ran out of resources a bit quicker than I usually would. In a game where I draw these as well as even just 2 top end, I will generally end up winning because I can outlast my opponent by playing 7-cost Kid, holding 1 dong for Giant, and looking for more top end to keep spamming every single turn. So I can play things like Newgate or Luffy and leave 1 dong up for Giant, and Giant, while stopping an attack, also helps me cycle through my deck. And then in the event that I don't have these, as you saw, I can also play Queen or Onami to also cycle through my deck and build up blockers that can't be ignored for most decks, and create time for me to find these larger things that the opponent just can't really deal with due to the amount of power that I'm pushing at the opponent. In the mirror, actually, this is one of the most important cards, so I think that if you are going to think about the mirror, rather than teching in strong top end, like 10-cost Shanks, I'd rather tech in things that can do small KOs, like for example, Beckman or Rayleigh, as they can actually take Bunkley. If you can't, then Bunkley will guaranteed hit for 10,000 at some point in the game. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.